name is Julia Westfall, and I'm the CEO of Hera Hub DC. And this year, we're very proud to be working with DC peers on a Giving Tuesday campaign to raise funds for their organization. Cathy Robertson, who we're going to be talking with over the next few minutes, is the founder. She's also a Hera Hub member, and her programs have really touched me so much since she joined in October of 2016. So it's been over 4 years. She's been a member here at Hera Hub, and it's just, the DC Peers is a wonderful organization, and I'm going to let her do the explaining about the programs and services that they offer, because she's much more eloquent at it than I am. But I'm just really proud to be supporting her this year, to helping her raise funding to continue the amazing and grow the amazing programming that she's doing for a really important part of our community. And so yeah, and like I said, she's been a member at Hera Hub since October of 2016, which I think was really when you just were getting started with DC Peers. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why you started it and what DC Peers is all about?
Well, first, thank you so much for doing this, Julia, and for helping us out this Giving Tuesday, because it's our first time doing this, and it's great timing because we've had a really great year despite COVID. We've had a lot of time to kind of pull our plans together, and we're very excited about what's coming. But this makes us feel like a more grown-up organization.
Yeah.
When we started, actually, we joined Hera Hub because I wanted to get this going. And Hera Hub was kind of a perfect spot in our community, near the local high school, professional, but also warm. And so you've seen it from the very beginning. And you, I think, know that it was kind of an experiment. I started because I have an autistic son who had done a social skills group, but he wasn't able to take what he was learning and practice it anywhere. And I started thinking about how I could pull groups of kids together for him to be able to practice socializing. Because one thing that happens to a lot of autistic kids is that they're told what to do, how to correct their behavior, but they don't then have any chance to practice it. And so they're always feeling like they're at a deficit. And as I started to think about how to do it, I realized I really wanted it to be a community group, and that my daughter's friends who are not autistic and who didn't know anything at the time about autism or about Sophie's brother, I thought I could bring them in together. And so we brought in to learn together so that the neurotypical kids would start to understand something about autism and why it affects kids the way it does. And then the autistic kids could also have some cool kids to learn from, frankly. That's what they wanted. But a lot of the kids didn't want to be in social skills groups where they felt as if they were being treated as a problem. They wanted to be in a general social, kind of a mainstream social group where they were accepted. So, and that's really almost impossible to get in a mainstream school or anywhere in the community. So I started because there was nothing else available, and because the kids were interested, all of them, and the parents, and so it was fairly easy to pull together the first group.
Yeah, I remember those first groups because Cathy would bring the kids into the large conference room and also have them at other events in the co-working area, and it was really exciting to see your daughter really embrace and support you and her brother by bringing in her friends from high school, and they were all just amazing kids. So I'm sure you're very proud.
Yeah, and one of the things that was fun is that they were all very open-minded, smart kids, and the neurotypicals, what we would do is typically we would raise a question like, so what do you guys do if you're in a big crowd and you want to try to join somebody else's conversation? How do you do it? And actually, none of them really knew how to do it. A few of them had in mind the steps they would use, but we ended up going through the steps most people take to join a group conversation, and all of the kids said, wow, this is super confusing.
Well, it's confusing still for some adults too, because I hear that from a lot of people that are just trying to go to networking events and figuring out how to join in, you know.
Right. So there's some learning about social customs, social norms, but there's also some discussion of those things, because some of them are just customary. They're not necessarily critical. For instance, it's not necessarily critical to shake someone's hand or make sustained eye contact if that's difficult for you. And I wanted our kids to feel empowered to describe their own experience and what was difficult for them, and to be able to take the parts of the social stuff that they were taught that they could use, which is why we're a little bit different from other social skills groups. Most of the social skills groups that are available to kids on the spectrum are clinical. They're either in a speech pathology clinic or a psychology clinic or an occupational therapy office, or they're in a special education school setting. And they're also all focused on encouraging autistic kids to fix their social skills and bring their social skills up to snuff so that they can join the neurotypical world. And I think that's a very fundamental difference. I think that that's too much pressure to put on autistic folks who are completely exhausted by that effort. They have a different way of being in the world, and they want to be able to be themselves more often. So our approach is to try to meet our autistic friends and peers halfway, so that it's not going to be a disqualifier if they're, entering a new community or a job interview or something, and they're doing this with their hands. That might, in this culture now, this might really freak some people out. But this is a fairly classic thing that a lot of autistic friends of mine do when they're feeling a little jumpy. It's kind of like, biting your nails or tapping your foot. It's just a little different. So that's part of the different culture of our group, is to try to embrace some of those things, make them more familiar, and make them more normalized.
Yeah, because I'm sure it's like anything. Once you learn and once you get to know people that have these different ways of just coping with the social environment around themselves, we all do things similar, but feeling more comfortable with it, because the more you get to know people, then the more normalized it becomes, I think, and more accepting people are to say, yeah, this person, it really isn't a reflection on how smart they are and how much they can contribute, just because they have red hair, for example, so and I think that's really great, because it's, really trying to embrace the way people are, and be accepting of it. So I think that's really an amazing thing that you're doing with your programs. But speaking of embracing, what does that mean? Would you describe that to people who want to, well, I think you've talked a little bit about what it means to embrace neurodiversity, but I think how your program specifically make that help them make that happen. So
and that's right now the neurodiversity movement was basically a kind of self-determination movement that came from the autistic community, but it encompasses a number of other neurological differences. And the movement, the kind of the central message of the movement is different brain wiring is just part of our variety as human beings, and it's always been there, and it's legitimate, and it's okay, and it doesn't need fixing. as a kind of political movement, it has generated some controversy because there are folks who are much more affected by autism and who really do need so much support that they don't really feel like it's a, they don't feel like it's just a difference. They feel like it's definitely a disability that needs, support and, if possible, improvement. But the value of the movement is that it helps us reframe the way we see different ways of being in the world, and how that difference contributes to a lot of really interesting stuff. There's a great book that's been written about it called Neurotribes that does a history of autism, and part of the history it outlines is how critical folks who now would be recognized as autistic were to getting us into space and to developing our computer networks and to, developing parts of our science and technology worlds that we wouldn't have been able to develop without such detail-minded, brilliant ability to focus. So part of the embracing it means not just understanding the neurological differences, but embracing their value and celebrating their quirkiness too. So for instance, this Sunday in our high school group, we're going to be talking about how we watch movies, because I saw a great tweet by a neurodivergent woman who tweets about her experience. She said, "I wonder how neurotypicals watch movies, because for me, as soon as a movie starts, I start cataloging the details and branching off into different plot scenarios and imagining different ways the story could go." And that's fascinating to me, because I know that's true I have a number of autistic members of my family and social world, and it's difficult for me to follow, but that is something I respect and I'm fascinated by. And the more that becomes familiar to me, the more fun it is to watch a movie with somebody that I otherwise
who's like got this enhanced experience,
Right.
It's
Exactly.
really an enhanced experience rather than just sitting there and just letting it all just come in and kind of dulling all your other senses. It sounds like for her, it activates
Right.
something,
And it
which
helps
is
you
really
understand
interesting.
yourself better. It helps you understand yourself better. I realize I don't pay any attention at all to the plot. I'm just paying attention to the characters. I figure someone else will tell me the plot later.
Or the plot will be revealed, or I think it's going to go this way. Yeah. So but that's fascinating.
Embracing neurodiversity means recognizing it and recognizing its value and its interest, and also accepting it, making it part of our culture, I think.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So, what have you learned since you started DC Peers? It's been over 4 years now, just over, and I'm sure that there are things that you thought were going to go a certain way that have changed or evolved into something else. So, what do you feel like you've learned?
I've learned that I started this as an experiment because I didn't know what we were trying. I didn't see any examples of anywhere else. So I didn't know if this would work to create a kind of a community. I didn't know if high school kids would be willing to talk about their own experiences on a personal level and share with each other. I didn't know if it would genuinely feel like a relief and a kind of community to the autistic participants who had been feeling isolated. And I've learned that all those things, they were kind of common sense. They were kind of a guess, and I've learned that they are true, that you make a little effort to create an inclusive, diverse community, and it can work. I've also learned that there's literally no two kids in my programs who have the same needs. So it's very complicated to create a targeted social skills program that will take somebody from A to Z, from struggling with social skills to having a successful social life. There's no such thing. What the core of comfort in a social situation is acceptance and a sense of community and a sense of belonging. That's where it begins. That's where your ability to socialize really begins. And so it's tricky for us to measure exactly how much progress each one of our participants feels like they are making. But I do see a real shift in their sense of self-esteem and enthusiasm and willingness to talk about their experience, which they didn't have any place to talk about before.
So, but that must feel like really amazing, to have gotten to where you've tried things and you've learned and you've evolved your programming, and you've seen, I'm sure, are some of the same kids in your program now that you started?
Yeah, they all tend to stick with us, which is really great.
Well,
And the first
that's
group, I
wonderful.
kind of thought the first group would be done after the 16 weeks, and then they all signed up again. So I had to make up some new material. So that was fun.
No, but that's great. That's great, because that really, to me, that means it's making a difference and it is valuable for them.
Yeah.
And so what do you see in the next 4 years? What do you envision in the future?
Very excited because we have a bigger team this year. We have 5 fantastic interns of all stripes, neurologically and culturally, and they're excited about this. I'm hoping to harness some of their energy, and our goal for the spring is to try to really do what we originally wanted to, and get some version of what we're doing across the city. I really wanted to, we are in a very privileged quadrant of the city, Northwest DC, but my real goal is to have something that's easy to implement that I can share or bring to all neighborhoods. Because one of my programs is free, 2 of them are free, and 2 of them are very low cost. And that's the way I think it should be when it comes to social stuff. You know, our typical kids can go to the YMCA or the JCC or the local parks and recreation and find things they can join. But our kids who function differently don't always feel like they're welcome there or that they can manage it.
Yeah.
So I'd like our kids to have same opportunities, and that's my next step.
Yeah, and really that's what we're fundraising for. You know, that's why we want people to look at what DC Peers is doing, and the programming and the impact that it's having on these teens and their families and their friends and people who love them and their future. I mean, that's what I really think about is, you know, because I know we've had this discussion about, what can you do now to help create a better future for these kids. And so, and that's why we're raising money, because we need to provide more programs and have the resources to be able to do that. But the other thing that we've also had lots of conversation about is really what happens with these kids. I mean, what is your vision for these kids when they go to college or they go out and are looking to build a career, find a job? You know, what types of things do you want our business community to know about the value that these teens and young adults can ultimately bring to our economic community?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I think that businesses are starting to recognize there's been a lot of big businesses that are making some effort to include disabled and autistic. I'm sort of separating those things. Folks, I think it's tricky in a lot of ways, because there are ways in which the interactions you have, a neurotypical and autistic person, the ways in which they can misunderstand each other are pretty complex, and there are a lot of them. And I think I'm hoping that when kids go through something like what we're doing, they learn to be proud of themselves and also to articulate their own experience and their own needs. They learn to say, apologies, I actually have such a sensitive sense of smell. I can't work in this room. I'm going to go work somewhere else. If they learn to do that, they're able to better adapt to workplace environments that are receptive to those things. But also, my fantasy is that some of what we're teaching neurotypicals will get out there into the community and into the workplace, and that business owners, managers can learn to appreciate our quirky peers the way that we do. That they can realize that if someone starts to monologue in a meeting about the details of something they're really passionate about, they can learn to politely cut them off because they don't always have the filtered no to stop. That's like an example of passion and intelligence, and not really a problem if we get used to it and learn to work with it. So I think it's not so much of business. I think is interaction. So there's a bit of a learning curve, I think, for folks in the business world to work around interaction complexities. But there's so much brilliance and talent in all of the kids in my groups. They know, and they're passionate about so many things, and not just about, instead of socializing, that they're just dying to work. So I do hope more businesses will kind of open their eyes, be interested in this group of young people.
Well, yeah, and explore what it means to really have a diverse workforce.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of businesses that say, that have diversity and inclusion programs and this and that and the other, but where along that line are people with autism or other disabilities, not just racially and culturally and economically diverse.
Right.
Because autism, I'm sure, is across all cultural and racial lines and genders and everything. So I think it's really important to make people aware too that that's also part of the importance of having a diverse workforce and a diverse worldview. So I'm really excited to encourage people to check out your website, look at your donation values. I mean, I think it's really great, because if you want to take a minute and just kind of share what different dollar contributions can support with DC Peers, I think that might be a great way for people to really understand that when they contribute to the general fund, that they're really contributing to the running of continuing and building and growing of these programs. So what are some of the typical contribution levels that you were looking for?
Well, we've decided on a couple things that are discrete. One is a kind of a gift that is just symbolic of the number of volunteers that we had that made this thing get off the ground, and we had 23 volunteers that first year.
Wow.
So $23 is representative of our beginning and our hope. $50 is how much it costs typically to run one session, and we run neurodiversity group sessions for free. So a contribution of $50 funds a session. It funds our interns and our space, and a contribution of $250, to make a bit of a leap, would fund one person who's in a social coaching group for a whole semester. Right now we have a social club for middle schoolers, and the cost of that is about $250 per person. And since we have some neurotypical volunteer peer mentors in that group. That would help pay for them, but also it helps pay for, a lot of people can't pull together $250 for the fall, even though it's fairly low. And 500 would be a contribution to our goal of getting DC peers across the city, which we'd like to do in the next year or two.
Yeah, that would be so meaningful, because you know that like you said, in our neighborhood, you know, where Hera Hub is located and where Wilson High School is, where a lot of these students attend, you know, it's you know, it's kind of it's in a great place, and with great support and all of that stuff. And I think that there's such a need across the city that doesn't have, in areas that don't have access to resources and support that we do through Wilson and some of the other programs here. And we, you know, you've told me that from the get-go, is that you really want it to be accessible to kids who need it and can benefit from it and want to participate. And so that's why I think it's really important for people out there in the community to say, I want to make a difference. And even if you don't have someone on the autism spectrum in your family or community, it really doesn't take much to go to a website, learn more about it, and contribute and make a difference. And so that's what we're encouraging people to do.
I'm sure that you have somebody in your past, somebody that you didn't understand and you know was isolated by their difference and you didn't fully know what it was. I know I have several people like that in my past that I didn't understand until I had an autistic son. It's a good investment, I think, to donate a little to us and help us pull together all this energy and make something we can share with other communities.
Well, that's amazing. So, as you know, I've been a great supporter. I'm just so excited to be helping you get your donation program
from the very beginning, Julia.
I know. But you know what? You have to do it when the time is right, and now is the right time. And so it's really also not about just Giving Tuesday, but building you know, a broader base of support that will continue to fund programs and so that these teens and young adults and their peers can really, you know, move forward in their lives and in their careers, and you know, be fulfilled in a way that maybe they might not have otherwise been able to be if they weren't able to participate in your program. So yeah, I'm sorry, it always touches me.
I'm so moved by that. I'm so grateful to you. You nurture so many organizations and people, and you help everybody grow.
Thank you so much. And so thank you. So please be on the lookout in our social media for ways that you can, I mean, it's very clear. We'll be posting how to donate, but if you go to dcpeers.org, you can easily find the donate button, and we hope you'll come out and support Cathy and her team of wonderful teens, adults, and people. Thank you so much.